We got a bidet! Hey everybody, and welcome back for another video. In this week's Shoot the Sheev podcast, we are talking about Rebels Season 1. So if you don't know what Rebels is, Rebels, I believe, was the first ever animated Star Wars show by Disney. I'm pretty sure. I don't remember the year that this came out. Let's see. Star Wars Rebels release date.
2014.
So yeah, I think Disney had Star Wars by this time. Let's see, when did Disney acquire Star Wars? 2012. So yes, this was the first Star Wars show that Disney ever put out. A lot of people think of The Mandalorian as their first show ever. That was the first show that ever came out that was on Disney Plus. So this was before that time. So we got Star Wars Rebels, which takes place before or between episode 3 and 4. So we're getting a lot of that, our first taste of, what is happening with the Empire and, what is going on before we, meet Luke and Ben Kenobi and all that good stuff in episode 4. Some of the things that I can attest to from when this came out, because we like to do that during these little first segments, is that the toys were very interesting for this show. They were interesting because like the action figures almost look like just plastic molds of the characters from the show, which actually translates like super well because it looked like you had exactly what was on screen in action figure form. Because like sometimes you watch the movies and then you get the action figure and you're like, oh man, they did you dirty. Well, they didn't really get to do that here because it was basically a copy and paste into the 3D printer machine, so to speak. So I never bought any of the Rebels figures. I can honestly say I still haven't seen all of Rebels yet. But we're trying to watch these so that we can prepare ourselves for the new Ahsoka show.
How far do you think you got in the series?
I got like midway through season 3. It was during COVID times and wanted a show to watch while I'm sitting at home. And so I watched all of Clone Wars, which is a lot. And then I watched this show, 2.5 seasons worth, and then stopped. Which there is a lot of interesting stuff as we progress in the show. But this one did set up a lot of interesting things. And there's things even in this show where we're watching other shows, at least from my perspective. It wasn't from Sarah's because this was her first run through the show. But like when we're watching Kenobi and we saw the Grand Inquisitor, so many of us that have seen him in the past and know about his fate in the past, things didn't really seem to line up in the show, which caused a lot of issues until, they had their little reveal towards the end of the show. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, spoilers. In Rebels, we see the Grand Inquisitor, the guy that's in charge during the Kenobi show. And by the end of season 1 of Rebels, we see him die. Like he falls in an explosion and dies, which is pretty rare for a Disney show nowadays, I suppose. They didn't take this Inquisitor and try to turn him to the good side, kind of a thing. I think we actually learn more about him, though, down the line, because there is more to him than just being an Inquisitor. And then we watch him in the Kenobi show, which the Rebels show takes place after the Kenobi show, I believe. And we're led to believe in the beginning of the Kenobi show that the Grand Inquisitor is killed by Reva, which made no sense because of what happened in Rebels. So, all of us that had seen Rebels and know about the Inquisitor kind of had that, are they really that dumb, or is he actually not dead, kind of a thing. Like, are they going to break canon? So that was one of the big things that came out of this show, that resonated down the line with some other Star Wars shows. Not to mention, the Inquisitor looks amazing in this show and not so amazing in the Kenobi show. Um, there was one, we were actually out and about in the stores, and we saw the Grand Inquisitor Black Series figure, which we've shown on the channel here before, on the rack. And Sarah, you said something to me about it. What did you say? Do you remember?
No, no.
So we saw the Grand Inquisitor figure, and you had mentioned, like, if there's one thing that didn't translate super well to the Kenobi show, is that the act
Oh,
did not appear menacing.
yeah. So I feel like he did an all right job of like personality wise being like strong, I suppose, and like authoritative type voice, but he doesn't seem like menacing, like, his gnarly, gross teeth that you see in this series, and his yellow eyes and stuff. And those are two things that should have been pretty easy for them to do. They did it with Cad Bane, and not the yellow eyes, but like different eyes, and the teeth. They did it with Cad Bane when they transferred him from cartoon to live action, and they did a really good job with that one. But with the Grand Inquisitor for the Kenobi show, it just didn't, or yeah, it just didn't translate as well as what I would have hoped.
It's kind of weird because I feel like I remember seeing him have like yellow eyes when he's really mad in the Kenobi show, and maybe that's something in the Rebel show that I didn't notice, but um I feel like I saw him with yellow eyes most of the time during Rebels. So
I feel
does
like his eyes changed in Rebels when he was really mad.
okay.
Like maybe the color tint changed a little bit or something.
Yeah. So some other things that are going on with season one. Not only do we learn about the Inquisitor, this was the first time we actually saw the Inquisitors. They had new lightsabers, which, how do you feel about the whole spinny spin?
I mean, it's fine. I don't know.
I say a lot of people criticize that they use them as helicopters because they can fly with them. Um, I think they're kind of neat.
He seemed to use it kind of a lot, I suppose, but if I had that feature on my lightsaber, I'd use it a lot too. I feel like at some point I'd probably chop my own toes off.
Yeah. It's weird because there's a lot of times in the show, like when he's using it and they're really trying to emphasize what's going on with the light, like the spinning, they like almost do like a slow motion every time he's using it, to emphasize a little bit more of that menacing appearance, I suppose. Um, we meet our main character, Ezra, in this show. He is base It's another funny thing you said during watching this show. Um, Ezra has no family. He's just a loner. His parents are gone, and he's surviving on his own. He seems very Aladdin-like as he goes through the streets, and he's able to steal things and get what he needs to survive in life. But the interesting thing you had said was, we got this for Ezra, and it seems like his story seems fairly plausible. But then Rey almost had the same story for the sequel trilogy, but her story seems a little uh, different in the respect that Ezra understands as a child that his parents aren't going to come back, and so he's trying to live his life. Whereas Rey is holding on to the, oh, my parents will come back, because that's why she's always wanting to go back to Jakku, is because my parents will come back. So that was kind of a cool thing that I know you mentioned while we were watching it. There's a couple of, so it's weird because I'm watching this season for a second time, and maybe sometimes you don't realize some of the things you say, but I think they're cool, so that's why I latch onto them. It might seem very nonchalant for you, but You make
Hey,
some
if you remember him, go for it because I'll say it and I'll forget it.
she's just talking and not thinking. That's just how she rolls.
Like sometimes that's what happens.
Let's see, who else do we meet? Kanan. This is actually the first time we would meet Kanan, but he is featured in another um animated show. We see him very briefly in The Bad Batch, believe it or not.
Mhm.
To try to jive your memory here, if that's the right word. Um,
Jog.
jog, that too, something I don't do much of. Um, in the very beginning of The Bad Batch, remember when Order 66 is being relayed to all the troops, and they turn on the one Jedi and her Padawan, and the Bad Batch is like, "Whoa, what's going on here?" kind of a thing. Do you remember that?
You talking about the kid?
Yeah, the kid they let run away, that was Kanan. I don't know if you knew that.
I don't recall that, no, but it does make sense, I suppose.
It was a really weird thing in uh the Bad Batch because he looked like a kid, but he had his adult voice. So it was kind of like puberty hit you pretty early there, bud. Just because of how deep his voice was. We also meet Hera in this show. That is the Twi'lek character that we got. That is like the commander of the Ghost, the ship.
That's one that I remembered when we were watching Bad Batch and they go to help her as a kid, and you told me like, "Oh, that's so and so from this other show." And even though I hadn't seen this show yet, when we saw her here, I'm like, "Oh, hey, I remember her from when we watched Bad Batch." So kind of neat that they have two of those characters from this show in that show.
Yeah. Let's see who else we got. Oh, we got Sabine. Sabine is in this show. Uh, she is very much uh, a lover of being like painting and artistry, so that's really cool. It seems like there's a connection there between her and Ezra, like almost flirtatious type relationship. Um, Again, I have not seen all of season 3 and all of season 4, but part of me wants to believe that something is going on there, and it will continue to progress as these shows continue. We get Zeb. Zeb, we saw very briefly in Mando season 3. We saw the live action version of Zeb.
It's another
Um,
one they did a really good job with bringing to life.
yeah, I really liked the effort they put into his character, but in comparison to the Grand Inquisitor, very lackluster. It seems like the budgets were very, very different. Although Zeb was only on screen for like 30 seconds for Mando, so maybe that's why they were able to do such a good job with him. Oh, and how can I
That'd
forget?
be It seems like that would be more of an excuse to put in less effort because you're barely going to see them.
I don't know. I feel like the end of Mando season 3 was kind of like that tease of seeing these Rebels characters in live action, and so they wanted to, you know, put a good first impression before Ahsoka comes out. That's my guess. And also, uh, I'm sure Dave Filoni, which Rebels is basically his baby, um, he probably wanted to make sure that those characters were on point just because he cares so much about them. I think there's one more character that we got that's a part of this new crew, and that is Chopper. Chopper, in my opinion, is hilarious. And what's interesting is because Chopper seems to be very, like, when he talks and makes his beeps, I feel like we can understand what he's saying. Like some of the things he's trying to say, he'll just say it as if he's humming it. So, like, I don't know. What was he did charge in the I think it was the last episode. You know, he did the da 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 da. So you know what he's trying to say. Or I think there was a part early on in the show where they're like Chopper and either Ezra or another crewmate were going back and forth, and Chopper basically did the noise, and you know you can understand what he's doing and conveying with some of the noises that he makes.
He has
Um,
his own laugh.
yeah. So it's not like, in my opinion, R2 or Chewie, where we kind of have to rely on the other characters to know what they're saying. I mean, we can understand whether R2 or um, Chewbacca are upset because they can, sound angry or sad and all that good stuff. But I feel like Chopper was a little bit easier to understand what he actually means, like in English. So I thought that was kind of um, a cool personality trait to give Chopper, if that is the way to put it. We also got some cameos in this show. We got Lando, which was really cool. We got to see him in a couple of missions. Trying to think.
I think it was just the one.
Yeah, because he was a side part of the story. We got some people from the Empire as well. We get Tarkin. So Tarkin plays a decent amount in this show. I'm trying to look up what that general dude's name was. They said is a captain or something.
Thinking of Agent Callus.
Yes, Agent Callus. So he's kind of the guy that's doing the dirty work, so to speak, for the Empire. Whereas like Tarkin is the one that's giving him orders to go do all this stuff. So we do get him in this show. He's emphasized quite a bit. I don't think Vader was in this very much. He was at the very, very end because he was like that. There was two like cliffhanger things for season two. There was Vader, and then there was this character that they kept calling Fulcrum throughout the show, and they were hiding this character's face over with some robes. And turns out Fulcrum was who?
Ahsoka.
Ahsoka, which is the whole point of why we're watching this one first, as opposed to the Clone Wars, because we're gonna get there as well. The newer Clone Wars. We already covered the 2D Clone Wars. Is there anything else we should talk about as far as just what's going on with the show?
I mean, the group's pretty well established without Ezra when we first start out. Ezra kind of, in his own street ways, trying to see that these other rebel people, although he doesn't know they're rebels, are trying to steal some stuff. So he thinks it must be valuable, I guess, and tries to steal some himself. And they kind of butt heads for a while. But the group kind of sees it as a way of, um, we kind of got this kid into this mess. We need to help him out. And even though they butt heads for quite a while through the season, they kind of become like a family, like how siblings kind of butt heads sometimes. Um, but they become a pretty well-rounded group. I feel like we've got, kind of the parental figures, if you would, being Hera and Kanan. And then we've got kind of the kid figures, if you will, being Sabine and Zeb and Ezra and Chopper for that matter. Can't forget him. I feel like we get some Jedi type training in here, so that's kind of neat to see. I'm trying not to go too much into likes and dislikes and just kind of talking about the show as a whole. Uh,
Yeah, because like
yeah.
Ezra, like when we first meet him, he's not a Jedi. He's just a kid running through the streets. But because he runs into Kanan and all them while they're doing a mission, Kanan decides to bring this kid with him because he feels that there's a strong force um, essence or ability within Ezra that, during this time, it is if you're a Jedi, you got to stick together or else they're gonna, get you and kill you, kind of a thing. Um,
Well, he also has no training, so I think that's part of why Kanan wants to train him, not necessarily because he wants to, but because he feels like he has to, because if he doesn't, he can see that, especially throughout the episodes, Ezra doesn't know his full power. And so, in times when he gets really emotional, some stuff goes a little crazy. And so, Keenan sees it more or less as his responsibility to help keep Ezra in check so that he can not go to the dark side.
Right. Yeah. So that was kind of our little bit of a what is this show? What are the things that are new to us, especially since, Sarah is new to the show. For me, it's a rewatch, but obviously I don't remember everything. Because it's been a couple years. And so now that we've established the show and talked a little bit about, what was some of the stuff like when this show came out, as far as like merch and whatnot. When we come back, we're going to talk about some tough love stuff for the show. So stick around. Have you seen The Mandalorian? Do you wonder what Operation Cinder was that they mentioned in this show? Well, we got you covered because we have an entire playlist dedicated to the Star Wars Battlefront 2 campaign, which highlights Operation Cinder. So if you check out our playlist, you'll be able to see what actually happened with Operation Cinder and know what they're talking about with the show. Now back to ours. Welcome back, everybody. We are here for our tough love section for the show. Again, we're talking about Rebels Season 1, and we're approaching this from the point of view of, if you have just watched this show and you're new to it, what would you experience? So one of the tough loves that I have is, when we meet this Ezra character, we don't know much about him, but we do progressively throughout the show learn more and more about Ezra. But I feel like we don't learn much about the other characters. Like we don't learn much about Hera, Zeb. Chopper might be a little hard.
What is Hera and Kanan's relationship?
They seem very flirty to one another. So
They talk as if they're married.
yeah, I don't know if I don't think that they are married. I could see them just as like very good friends, or we call that. I don't know where I'm going with it. Just that they're really good friends. Like they could joke around with each other and push the boundaries of a joke, and it wouldn't be taken the wrong way, kind of a thing. Like that kind of friendship. So I kind of wish not only with this crew, but I would like to see more about the Inquisitors. I think we learn more about some of them down the line, but I emphasize this podcast is about season 1, and if you haven't seen the other seasons, you wouldn't know that. So I wish there was a little bit more background on some of our characters, and that they weren't just necessarily saved for future stuff, if that's where they end up going with it. Because again, I don't remember. Sarah, I know you said you had a small tough love.
All right, it's gonna sound pretty silly. Are you ready?
Is it petty?
Yeah, kinda. Yes. Chopper does this thing a lot where he sticks out his hands like this, and he kind of grabs them like crab claws. And I've been watching SpongeBob lately, and all I see every time he does this is here's Mr. Krabs. Money, 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 money.
Do you see the robot version that Plankton made, or do you
That's cer
see?
that's certainly what it looks like to
That's
me.
kind of funny. I I think you can get a chopper at like Disney World and what nowadays at the Droid Depot, which I think would be really cool. I like Chopper. The show is making me like him more and more. I would say that because I know there's a group of fans where it's like if you mention Chopper, they're like, "Oh my God, Chopper's amazing!" And it's like, well, maybe we can kind of start to understand where that all comes from now that we're seeing the show.
He's kind of like our first droid that has personality, aside
Yeah,
from C-3PO, I suppose. But in terms of C-3PO doesn't even really show personality. He just talks a lot compared to, say, R2.
I would say he shows personality. Like he has. fluctuation in his voice and showing if he's frustrated and stuff like that. I would argue that, but
Yeah, he does say, "Oh my."
I would say as far as ones that don't actually speak English or a language for that matter, yes, I would say that he's above the other ones in that category.
But I mean, R2's pretty sassy too.
He is, and I can understand that he's being sassy, but I mean, I would really have to put words in his mouth if I'm trying to figure out what he's trying to say,
That's
uh,
true.
which is hilarious. Like when in The Last Jedi and Luke is like, "Hey, it's a sacred island. Watch the language." You know, just imagine what R2 is saying at that point. Um, ooh, is there anything else that we really didn't care for? Honestly, this show, in my opinion, was very good. And I see like memes about this show in general on like Twitter and whatnot. And it was like a picture of a horse where that was divided into four parts. And the first two parts are like hand drawn with a pencil. And then the last two parts are like color and like a flaming horse, which they're trying to tell you that the first two seasons are okay, but then the last two are like absolute amazing. Which watching season one, I kind of thought it was pretty good. Like I don't agree that the season was bad.
I guess one thing to mention, I suppose, for this section is that it seems like we are either on Lothal or like in the Lothal region a lot. And for as much as the Empire is on their tail, for them to stick to this one region or around this one planet, it seems like they would be caught way easier.
Possibly. Yeah. I think this um tough love section is going to be short here, but that's okay. That's okay. There's tons of things in my opinion to talk about in the things that I liked. So kudos to Star Wars Rebels for making a good show and not having much for us to say about it that we didn't like. So when we come back, we're going to talk about some things that we really liked about Star Wars Rebels. So stick around. Have you ever wondered what Amazon coffins are and what they're full of? Well, we got you covered here on the channel. Check out our playlist of our Amazon coffin unboxings where Sarah and I open up boxes that have Amazon returns and we share with all of you what we get in each of those boxes. If you ever wanted to get into liquidation and want to know what types of things you can find, check us out. Now back to our show. Welcome back, everybody. We are here to talk about the things that we liked about this show. And like we kind of prefaced in the tough love section, there's actually a lot of cool stuff in this show. I'll kick it off with I really liked the villain. I really liked the Grand Inquisitor. I did not know. So it's interesting because when I saw this show before, I did not look up anything about voice actors or anything like that. And when I heard that the Grand Inquisitor was going to be a part of the Kenobi show, I was like, you know what? You know who would be perfect to play this part? And let's see if I can pronounce his name.
What you just said alone makes me think of the guy from Saw,
What?
who would be perfect for this part to be like, menacing.
Oh, okay, got him. So I got this name. Got you, fam. Um, the actor that I would have picked to play the Grand Inquisitor in live action would have been Jason Isaacs, which, spoiler alert, he actually plays the Grand Inquisitor in the animated show. I had no idea. Um, After I found out and I listened to the voice closer, then I was like, it all makes sense now. Maybe it was kind of like in the unconscious mind of being like, you know what? He would be perfect because he is him. Disney, how'd you drop the ball on that one? He's played so many menacing characters in the past, and he did a great job in this show that it really made no sense why he couldn't have been the actor for um, Kenobi. So I really liked the villain in this one, the Grand Inquisitor. I liked his new lightsaber. I thought that they did a really cool. Um, they had a really cool idea of how to expand on lightsabers and how to differentiate these Inquisitors from, you know, the Sith, so to speak. And that was a way to do it, is to give them a different type of lightsaber. So overall, I'd probably say he's probably my favorite part of this show is the Grand Inquisitor.
While
I
you're talking about lightsabers, I thought it was really weird when at least in the last episode is when I really saw it, but their lightsabers were like almost pointy at the ends, which is something I'm not used to really seeing.
Yeah, that's kind of a thing that they do in the animated show. Um, I don't recall them doing that a whole lot, like in the movies. I don't know, but yeah, it's something that they do a lot in the animated shows.
It brings a new meaning to the blade of the lightsaber.
It does. It changes everything we've ever known. Also, on the idea of lightsabers, we can talk about the other new lightsaber that was brought into this show, which was Ezra's lightsaber. We've never seen a lightsaber blaster thing before, which was really cool. He made his own lightsaber and he decided to put a twist on it. And so, you could ignite it like a normal lightsaber, or you could shoot. Um, they seemed almost like stun bubbles or something. Like it wasn't a straight up blaster like a stormtrooper's blaster, but it was really cool. I remember there was when the toys came out, you could buy this lightsaber and it would have the blade, but it was also like part Nerf gun, so you could shoot bullets out of it. So it was really cool.
What it reminds me of is a staple gun.
Yeah, when you're shooting it at your friends.
Don't try that at home, kids.
No, I don't even want to try it at home. She'll get mad at me. Was there something you liked from this show?
I'm gonna steal something that you talked about before, when we were talking about before we recorded, because I feel like I'm the one that said it first. So I'm gonna take you wipe those funny looks off your face right now. I think the music was cool. And yes, I'm going there.
Oh, yeah, you're stealing that one.
Um, there were times where I was picking up some of the original themes from the original movies. Probably not nearly as much. Okay, definitely not nearly as much as Jeremy was able to pick them up because he was able to be like, "Oh, this is from this battle. Oh, this is from this battle. Oh, this is from this battle," or whatever scenario or scene it was coming from. But there are some that I was able to recognize that were very iconic, and I thought that was neat.
Not only did you steal my point about music, but you stole like the main point of it too, the fact that it was from the other movies. But
You can go ahead and elaborate.
there's not anything else to elaborate on that talking point. It is what it is.
Well, where did they come from?
So this show is supposed to, expand on our knowledge of what's happening in the original trilogy. What is going on with the Empire between movies 3 and 4. And while doing that, they used a lot of music from the original films to complement what is happening on screen. So it was cool that they added that touch in there because it gives it another feel of this is original trilogy stuff. Um, I don't think people understand how much power music actually has and something like that. Like, if you had a very sad song during a part that was super action packed, I bet you would feel very weird. You wouldn't understand what you should be feeling at that moment. So same stuff here. When you have really cool things happening on screen and you're hearing music that is echoing from the original trilogy that's, really triumphant, it adds a layer to the coolness of the show. So I really liked how they did that. Uh, One thing that I want to say that's really cool about this show, and it's in comparison somewhat to some of the other animated shows, their filler episodes, and I'm going to say quote unquote filler episodes, didn't really feel like filler episodes. Do you know what I mean? Like it always seemed like even if they're doing some odd job, there was something in there that was growing the characters. They weren't just doing it and completing a side quest. It was, "Look, we're doing this side quest. Oh, but Ezra, you need to learn this about the Force, and this is, you know, something that you're dealing with, and let's expand on that kind of a thing." Um,
Or like
like
the episode they steal the TIE fighter and when they were just sent to the market for groceries, basically, but it's because they keep bickering so much as they're supposed to be friends and working as a team.
yeah, where they send Ezra and Zeb to the market and they're supposed to find something that's not supposed to be there. Like it's not native to the world, but then they happen to find one in the crates because it was like off-world shipments. Yeah, stuff like that. So it was cool that when watching this show, I wasn't like, oh my God, here is a filler episode. This is gonna stink, which sorry, I feel that way about like some of the stuff that happened in Bad Batch, um,
But you know what?
Mando.
I think some of that is going to be, I'm going to attribute it to the fact that we were watching this season of Rebels. We basically binged it. And yeah, we binged it over, say, 2 weeks or something like that. It wasn't all in one day, but it wasn't one episode a week for 15 weeks.
Right.
So being able to watch a few episodes at a time, it makes the whole thing seem like a more cohesive story. Whereas if you have those big breaks in between, I think that's why you and I have struggled so much with some of those filler episodes because we're just so anxious to see more of the story and to
Mhm.
have not more of the actual like main storyline when you're waiting week to week like that. It makes it frustrating.
Right. And I can attest to I have gone back and watched some of the shows that, we were very critical of, but I think they were still fair assessments considering they were week to week stuff. Um, like I've gone back and I've watched Book of Boba Fett. We've watched that with friends. I've gone back and I've watched Kenobi as like I'm binge watching it. And in my opinion, those shows hold up way better when you do it that way, which is, like you said, probably why um, this show felt so much different. I have not gone back and watched Bad Batch that way. Maybe it would feel that way. There's a chance. But yeah, I think this is just kind of a little off topic, but maybe Disney should try dropping an entire season or maybe even two chunks, like a first half of a season and a second half of a season, and see how that goes with a Star Wars show and see how fans respond. I almost wonder if that would be a better thing because, some of this stuff wouldn't have to carry over week to week of I waited a week to see that, and then you get all upset about it, and then it sets you up for being upset, with the possibly a shorter what do you call that? Like you go to watch the next episode and it'll upset you quicker knowing what happened the week before if this one isn't absolute fire kind of a thing. I think they call that like a shorter leash or something, but
It's funny you mentioned breaking the seasons into two halves because that's actually what Netflix has been doing. I know of at least two different shows, being Stranger Things and You. Both of those recent seasons in the past year, they broke into two halves where it was, I don't know, 3 weeks apart between the first half of the season and the second half of the season.
yeah. My only, I mean, it's a wild guess, but my only guess is that they don't like with Star Wars being so it's huge, obviously, but it's also kind of fragile in a way where, like, let's say someone binged all the episodes in one night and slapped spoilers online, and then people would be really upset. They could try to avoid that with doing it week to week. You wouldn't know what happens at the very end overnight. But part of me also says, I don't care. If I'm going to experience it better, do it, kind of a thing. Um, but I also know Disney is hurting with Disney Plus subscribers and stuff. So that's one way to keep people for a little bit extra time. What else do we got? What else do we got that we like from this show?
Who's your
I
favorite character?
My favorite character is the Grand Inquisitor. I know
Oh, yeah.
that's kind of biased because he's the dark side. Um, if I had to pick a favorite character from our main group, I'd probably say Chopper. I like his sassiness. I'm always kind of wondering, like, how can I interpret the next thing he's gonna say? Do I recognize the beeps and the boops that he's doing in order with the enunciation? What's he trying to say? And he's also just kind of a funny dude in general. When uh, someone is being mean to him and he shakes his hands at them like he's mad at them or makes a face. I like his personality. What about you?
That's a good one. I don't know. I've been trying to debate in my head. I feel like doesn't show enough personality for me to be able to choose her. A lot of her is just follow the mission, do what you're told, or else kind of a thing. Uh, Ezra, he's too new and too learning his ways, I think. I kind of almost want to lean towards him, but at the same time, sometimes he's frustrating. Sabine's one who surprised me because I thought just from the little previews that we've seen from the Ahsoka show and just seeing her at Star Wars Celebration and stuff and knowing what her character looks like, she's got the fun hair, she's got the Mandalorian helmet that's got some flair to it. I thought that she was going to be a really fun character, and in some ways she is, but I wish they would push that even further. Uh, like her graffiti stuff. Sometimes they see it, but most of the time you don't. And so I feel like she's somebody who I really wanted to pick, but I want more from her.
I feel
Uh,
like I feel like Disney like had a problem with this show that they didn't have. It's a good problem that they didn't have with their other shows, and that is that there's so much information that they could put in this show, but they have a time limit. So like maybe we could have learned more about Sabine, but because due to time constraints, they kept that for another time. Because like I feel like the issue with Star Wars right now is that we have this idea, but it's not long enough. So what can we throw in there to make it longer? Whereas this show is, oh my goodness, we have so much stuff. Maybe we have to save some of it for like season 2 or 3 or whatever. Um, that way we can get the story that we want to tell across, but maybe have some, breadcrumbs along the way for what's yet to come.
yeah.
Was
I
there
feel like
anything?
with I feel like with Bad Batch, it was really obvious to me that I had one or two favorite characters from that main group or main set. And with this show, I really don't feel that. I kind of like them all. And I know that's like a cheater answer to say, I don't have a favorite, I like them all. But I mean, I guess if I had to pick one, mm, I feel like the one I keep going to is probably going to be Ezra, just because he's the one who has the most personality and the most spotlight on him. He butts heads with everybody. He's the one who's having the most character growth. And for the sake of not picking Chopper, because I don't want to pick the same one as you, just because that's who you picked, he's probably a close second, just because he also shows a lot of personality. Uh, Kanan, he's all right too. I don't really have anything against him, and Zeb's pretty cool too. I like him too. But yeah, it's hard to pick.
I think that also kind of is a good testament to this show as well. If you like everybody so much, it's like, well, the group is my favorite, you know? just because they're all diverse, they're cool, they have their own ticks, and one of the things I also want to say that's really cool about this show is the banter back and forth. It's legitimately funny. I think that is what helps this show in terms of we don't need to know so much about their background, even though we do. We want to know more. We don't need to know as much more because we're learning how these characters are growing in season, like in present time. And that's kind of how we establish our understanding of these characters. Does that make sense? I almost feel like it, like I said, it's so strong with how they're connecting in present time. Maybe they feel we don't need as much of the background to supplement. So again, all testaments of just being like, wow, that was a really good show. So it's cool to see in comparison to other things we've been watching, what kind of cool cohesiveness this show has had. They had a new ship, which was pretty cool, the Ghost. You actually do get to see this ship in Rise of Skywalker, believe it or not. It is one of the ships that Lando recruits and brings to the battle on Exegol. So we actually kind of get these characters in that movie. I do like how the ship detaches, and you got that little escape pod that you can use. Yeah.
I ask you a question that might seem really silly, but maybe
Okay.
not. I don't know. Do you know what a specter is?
Nope. I know that's the name of one of the James Bond movies, and I was like, what is that? And why would you use it for the title of your movie?
So the ship is the Ghost, and whenever they're talking to each other, they say Spectre 1, Spectre 2, whoever, Spectre 5, whatever number. Spectre means ghost.
Oh, all right.
I
That's
knew it was
interesting.
something spooky like ghost, but I actually Googled it to make sure. Nope, legit, it means a ghost.
Well, that must mean that James Bond movie has to do with ghosts or someone they thought was probably dead.
Or maybe somebody got ghosted.
They could have. You don't ghost Nick Fury. If you know, you know. Anything else you want to talk about that you liked about the show? Tarkin
Uh,
was pretty cool. Oh, we should talk about. So we talked about in a previous Shoot the Sheev podcast. I believe it was the one about A New Hope. We were kind of talking about Tarkin's character and how he's like a ruthless guy, and we don't really get to see that in A New Hope as much as like the comics and whatnot show it. We talked about how he's like a very violent person. We do get a scene in this show where he actually has the Inquisitor kill his own men because he didn't want the word to get out. I think that they failed at retrieving the people or something, the group. I think
yeah.
that's what it was. And so he just had them have their heads chopped off. It was off screen, but it did happen. And it was like, wow, we got to see more of Vader's brutefulness, not only in Rogue One, but also in like Kenobi and stuff like that. And here we have Tarkin being able to be, flushed out with the different things that he's capable of, so to speak. So yeah, I wanted to squeeze that one in there. I remembered it a little bit ago, and I was like, oh, we got to talk about Tarkin,
Well, and you know who did that execution?
the Grand Inquisitor. All right, so we talked to you guys about a lot of the things that we really liked. So when we come back, we're going to wrap this up for you. And then we're going to be looking forward to season 2. So stick around for our final thoughts on the show. Have you ever wondered what it's like to grow up during the prequel era? Do you wonder what type of merchandise was around then? How different was it than it is now? Check out our videos on this channel where we talk about the merchandise of The Phantom Menace and the merchandise of Attack of the Clones. They are here on this channel. The Phantom Menace is my first video ever on YouTube, so there's a special place in my heart for that one. So please, if any, check that out. Now back to our show. Welcome back for our final segment here for this week's Shoot the Sheev. Sarah was letting me know during the break that there was something she wanted to bring up. So what did you want to talk about here in the final segment?
So I don't know what these animals are called, but there's only like one animal in this show. Do you know what animal I'm referring to? It like kind of looks like a raccoon, but it's not the right colors. It kind of looks like a cat, but like with a giant tail.
The Lothal cat?
Yeah.
I think that's literally what they're called. Let's see. Lothal cat. They're called a loth cat.
Loth cat. Okay. Well, we were pretty close there, I'd say. So the loth cat is one that when Kanan is trying to teach Ezra how to use the Force to use kind of like mind control or like mind suggestion to be able to connect with these animals and bond in a way that they're not going to be scared of him and they're not going to hurt him. So that's where we see these loth cats come in, and Ezra's able to use this ability later on in the show. But what I wanted to bring up is the lack of animals or pets in general. Pets are cute and
In this
cuddly
show?
in this show, in this season.
Okay.
Pets are cute and cuddly, and I wish we could see more. I think the only other animal we really see is the like secret mining machine, quote unquote, that I'm blanking on his name.
Lando?
Who?
Kanan? Lando?
Lando, yes. That he has, it's kind of like a hippo, but when you scare it, he inflates, which
Oh
is
yeah, that
kind
was
of
a funny
funny.
one.
But these are kind of like the only two animals that we see the whole time, and I don't know. I
Well,
think seeing more animals might be fun.
we did see the creatures that Ezra like that they don't like the light, and so they would
Right.
attack them and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, we saw those two.
Are
I
you
don't
talking
know.
about just cute and cuddly ones? Is what you
Yes.
want more of? Okay. I was about to
Yep.
say, I mean, there's tons of other Star Wars things out there, but yeah, I guess cute and cuddly. Miss Ewok over here.
It makes me wish that one of them had a loft cat, like as an actual pet. Like, what if Ezra came with a loft cat? Like, you take me, you got to take my cat too, you know?
Well, maybe it does in season 2, and we just don't know it yet. I don't know.
Well, I don't know either. I have my doubts because he didn't come with it already, but I don't know. I just think they're neat.
I will say though, probably the next time we go to Disney is a little bit down the road, and I think we'll probably have watched all of Rebels and most likely all of Clone Wars before we go back there. And the two that you mentioned, the Lost Cat and the one that inflates, which I don't remember what its name was, I believe you can buy those creatures at Galaxy's Edge, like as stuffed animals and stuff. Are you looking up what that inflated dude is?
Trying to see, yeah.
I thought it was funny because it's kind of like what was that, pufferfish?
Yeah.
Let's see. So the one thing that I wanted to talk about while you're looking that up is you've seen other animated shows. You've seen, was that?
I said I have.
You've seen Rebel, or not Rebels. You've seen, well, you've seen season 1 now, but you've seen The Bad Batch, season 1 and season 2. You've also seen Tales of the Jedi, which is a little bit of a different type of animated show. You've seen the 2D Clone Wars. Have you seen any others? Well, I guess you've seen a couple of the Lego shows.
They call it a puffer pig.
Puffer Pig, very creative.
Okay, I'm sorry. So let's go back to what you were saying. In terms of just Star Wars shows in general or Star Wars animated shows?
Star Wars animated shows. I think that's just about it for all the ones you've seen. The ones that are closely related to this is Bad Batch and Tales of the Jedi, because you haven't seen the recent Clone Wars yet. How would you say that this show compares to those?
Tales of the Jedi was really short. I want to say it was only like 6 episodes, and those episode lengths were probably somewhat comparable to the episode lengths of this show.
This
Bad
show,
Batch,
this
huh?
show is was like 20 minutes. So this was comparable to Bad Batch.
How long were the episodes for Tales of the Jedi?
I want to say those were like 10 or 15.
Okay, so shorter, so less episodes and shorter episodes too, so a lot less content. That being said, I feel like that's not really on the same playing field to be able to properly compare to this show. As far as, and I'll deal with Bad Batch in a moment. But as far as enjoyment level or excitement level of the show compared to strictly comparing to Tales of the Jedi, I was not really a fan of Tales of the Jedi. I thought one or two of the episodes were all right, but it wasn't really my thing. The art style just wasn't for me. It was hard to see. The art style hit harder for me, I think, because it was a lot of characters that I was supposed to know who they were, but because I know what they look like in live action, it's really difficult to put them in cartoon form, especially in that specific art style. So I really struggled with that, and it just wasn't for me. So I would definitely put this show, this season, above Tales of the Jedi for me personally. In terms of comparing this to Bad Batch, so they both have very similar run times of like 20-ish episode minutes, like 15 episodes per season or something like that. Again, ish. Um, they both have main character groups that you're following throughout. It's not just like one or two people, it's like a set group of 4 or 5 people that you're following throughout the galaxy, whatever missions they're doing. Uh, and at one point, the Bad Batch, although this isn't their original intent, they kind of become like this rebel group where they're trying to do things to help people. It's not always their main mission. Most of the time, they're just trying to make money, but they do wind up helping people throughout the show. Um, okay, so comparing, now that we know what we're comparing, which did I like more? It's really difficult for me to say because of the way that I watched them being so different. And I kind of touched base on this earlier, where with this I was able to binge watch it over about 2-ish weeks or something like that, and able to watch a few episodes at a time. I got to choose when I needed a break versus when I wanted to keep watching more. Whereas with Bad Batch, it was one per week, per week, per week, per week. And so if you had one that was kind of slower, there is no, I'll just watch another and it'll be fine. I have to wait a whole nother week to get some good content, which made it kind of hard to watch sometimes. Um, that being said, I did really like Bad Batch, especially in the first season. I liked the group. There's some of the characters that I liked more than others, specifically Tech and Wrecker, were my two favorites. But like again, with what we were touching on earlier in this podcast with the Rebels group, I didn't really have one particular favorite because I kind of like the whole group as a whole. And there's no like one character of, man, this show would be a lot better without them. Just kind of how I felt about Echo, not gonna lie, from Bad Batch. Um, so if I had to rank one over the other, I would probably put Rebels above Bad Batch. It's not to say that I hated Bad Batch by any means, or that it's a bad show. It's just that this one held my focus a lot better, and I liked the group as a whole better.
I would put this show pretty high on the list as well. I mean, I've seen at least a season of all the different animated shows. I do remember the final season of the Clone Wars being pretty fire. Like, it was a really good season. Not only did we meet the Bad Batch in that season, but there's a lot of different perspectives during Revenge of the Sith in that show as well. That was really, really cool, and I'm very excited to share that with you once we get there. Um, but watching this one, I would agree. Like, I was like, okay, what's going to happen next? There's a lot of episodes. There's a good handful of episodes in this show where it was like, oh, gotta watch the next one because of the way they ended it. They had a lot of good 2 to 3 episode arcs that was going on. Every now and then they had the one episode where it was just, the story in that one spot, which is fine. But a good chunk of them were very well connected, and then the overarching story, all of them played a very nice role in making sure that they paid homage, so to speak, to what their overall goal in the show was. And so I thought they did a great job with season 1, and we know who's coming in season 2, and I think that's going to make it even better. So, like, we traded one really cool bad guy in for the best bad guy in the world, and then I know for a fact that there's going to be another person being involved in season 3 and season 4 that are also going to be super interesting. So I really don't see this show slowing down, which makes me very, very excited.
You bringing up the best bad guy reminds me of something. I got a beef with you, Disney. Okay. When you have the screen where you're trying to do the episode selection, and I see that I'm on season 1, and you show me Darth Vader, and we don't even see him until like the very end of the season, that's frustrating. And then you know what else? At some point, they switched what was on the screen from Darth Vader on the episode selection screen to like, what'd you say? It was from like season 3 or 4, a picture of our group.
So there's a picture when you're picking episodes, and then there's the picture when it transitions between episodes, like when you're at the credits and then you're hitting next episode. So the one for next episode was Darth Vader, and then the one on the main screen was the group from season 4, which has spoilers in it. I feel like what they should do, and maybe this is too much, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure Netflix does this. When you're watching the show, that main image can change as you're watching the episodes. I'm pretty sure the little preview when you're watching Netflix, like when we were watching Stranger Things, the preview picture thing changed as we were watching the show. So like it was whatever the current one you were on, it was like a little picture preview of what was in that episode. I think it's kind of wrong to slap a picture of season 4, but you're starting on season 1, so you have all these spoilers. Like the picture shows Ezra, I think, with a green lightsaber.
Not to
Hello.
mention that he's chopped off his hair, and maybe he even has the Jedi braid. I don't know. I can't see, but he's got his hair chopped as if he's going for that look. And you know what else? It made me think that there was no real danger for Kanan when he got kidnapped, because I could see clearly he's in another season with like all of his limbs, so it's not like he even loses a limb or anything, drastic. Like, at least give me some sort of curiosity and longing to see what's going to happen with this character, instead of telling me right from the episode selection screen that he's going to be just fine.
Right. I totally agree. And it's interesting to me because I can look at that picture and I know that there's more spoilers in that picture that maybe you don't see. So I'm like, when we're turning the show on for the day, I'm like, okay, get past that screen because I don't want her to, overanalyze this and then figure out what's going on, because there is some stuff that will happen later on. Like that picture showed Ezra's cuts on his face from the Grand Inquisitor, and he got that in the final episode of season 1. So that's like a little thing that you don't really look for unless you really look at it. So my hope is that we can avoid you looking at that picture for too long. That way you're surprised when some of this other stuff happens, because there is a big thing in that picture that will be coming up that like does a major impact. I think it's season 2 that it happens.
Now I'm just gonna look at that picture even harder.
That really sets up the rest of the way. So close your eyes when we turn on the show. That's all I can say. Anything else you want to say about Rebels season 1?
I think that wraps it up pretty good.
I know we're excited for Rebels season 2, especially with Vader being involved. I think really only cool stuff can happen when he's on screen. So I look forward to season 2, and I'm sure Sarah does as well. If you enjoy this type of video, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. We will be doing talks on season 2, season 3, season 4, all that good stuff in the future. We just need it properly spaced out so that we can, be able to watch the show together and make sure that we get a decent understanding of it and not just try to pump those out every week. We have other topics we talk about, so you can look forward to those. We got tons of them already on the channel, so you can kind of get an idea of the different types of videos we do. Drops a like if you like the video, and drops a comment letting us know your thoughts on Star Wars Rebels Season 1. What are your favorite moments from Season 1? I think if I had to pick one, it would probably be that final battle between the Grand Inquisitor and Kanan, because they kept stepping up, the interestingness, so to speak, if that's even a word, of their battle. Like when he had 2 lightsabers, and when he was shooting at the Inquisitor with Ezra's lightsaber, and then switching back and forth with the lightsaber. It was something we'd never seen before, and they brought it into the show, which was really cool. And then, as always, everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.